What's up, Mech fans, and welcome back to the channel. So today we are talking about another Mobile Suit Gundam GQuuuuuuX episode. This is going to be episode number 5, titled Nyaan Doesn't Know About Kira Kira. And of course today we're going to be doing a spoiler review and breakdown of the episode. But before we dive into all of that, please do leave a like on this video and subscribe if you're a fan of Mecha anime content and want to see plenty more videos like this in the future. Also, head on down to the comment section below if you've seen this episode, then let me know what your thoughts on it. If you want to go into spoiler detail, then please do feel free, because like I said, this is a full spoiler review and breakdown. And without further ado, let us dive into a little bit of a recap. Gaia and Ortega, two of the former ace group, the Black Tri-Stars, plan to enter clan battle to earn some money. At Side 6, Xavier decides to search for the GQuuuuuuX himself, though he is warned by a Zeon informant to be wary of Charlie's true motives. He comes across Amate and Nyaan as they head for their next clan battle, and recognises Amate. When Nyaan is accosted by a police officer who asks for her identification, Amate assaults the officer and she and Nyaan flee. Xavier corners and detains Amate in order to prove her identity as the pilot, reasoning that the Pomeranians will be forced to forfeit if she does not arrive in time to pilot the GQuuuuuuX, but Nyaan decides to secretly take her place. Nyaan and Shuji fight Gaia and Ortega, who quickly gain the upper hand due to Nyan's inexperience and Shuji being debilitated by a fever. However, Nyan's frustration causes her new type powers to manifest, and she and Shuji are able to kill Gaia and Ortega. After the battle ends, Amate escapes Xavier, distraught as her new type connection with Shuji is no longer special. She is later shocked to learn that Nyaan was piloting the GQuuuuuuX. So that should give a decent overview of this episode. So diving into my thoughts on it, and this is my favourite episode once again of this series. Last week's episode was my favourite, now it's this week, because this series is continuing to improve upon itself, where every single week, again, we are just getting top quality Gundam content, really good episodes that are diving deep into the characters, showcasing some awesome battles, and of course the visuals, the music, like all the production is top notch on this show. This episode in particular is pretty much dedicated to Nyaan, where we're finally starting to flesh out this character and give her the spotlight, because as much as I've enjoyed her in the previous episodes, she has not really had a whole lot to do. Like, she's not really had those kind of defining moments that really elevate her as a character and elevate her as a presence in the series. This episode does that in so many ways where I didn't think they were going to do it. First of all, they have made Nyaan a new type, so our main trio are all new types at this point, which I guess kind of, resembles what you have with the original Mobile Suit Gundam series. If you were going to call the main three characters Amuro, Sailor, and Char, which I would make the argument that they probably are, all three of those characters are, of course, new types or have new type abilities. So it makes sense that all of our main trio here are also new types. In fact, most of the main characters in this show are new types. Our main trio and then our main Zeon trio, if you will, two of those characters are new types. We don't know, Kamoli might actually be a new type as well, but we just don't know that yet. Probably unlikely, doesn't seem like they're going that route, but it's always possible, because I didn't think they'd go that route with Nyaan, and here we are, and Nyaan is a new type. And to be honest, her going all out in this episode is probably my favourite moment in the series so far. I love when you have almost like the most normal, quiet kind of characters that are secretly the most insane. The scene of Nyaan essentially like unlocking the Omega Psycho system and going absolutely batshit crazy heavily reminded me of, I think it was episode 23 or 22 maybe, of the first season of Jujutsu Kaisen, where, Megumi Fushiguro, who is generally the more quiet, subdued character, kind of lets himself go and just goes into all this rage. And I love when they do that with characters, and that's exactly what they did with Nyaan in this episode, and it resulted in some excellent action sequences, fantastic voice acting as well, and also amazing visuals. There's one thing in particular that came out of this fight and this whole sequence that obviously warrants discussing, and that is, why is Nyan's Kira Kira, new type light thing purple as opposed to the kind of green and multicolored stuff that we've got going on with Shuji, Amate, and all the other new type characters that we've seen kind of involved in this. And of course, then as well, you've got the thing of why did the GQuuuuuuX's eyes and, a lot of its kind of light emitters turn purple as opposed to when they're usually green. There's a couple of theories that I have for this, and I'm leaning towards the first one because that kind of makes the most sense, but the second one also would line up with things in universe. First theory is that the Omega Psycho system is linked to emotion. So, for example, with Nyaan, as she goes into this full-on rage mode, that's why it turns purple, because it's linked to a different kind of emotion. Whereas you look at Shuji, and I guess to some degree as well, Amate when they're piloting, I don't want to say they're completely calm. Shuji probably is, but Amate not necessarily, but she's not like full of rage and hatred in the same way that Nyaan is here. The second theory, though, is that Nyaan could actually be a cyber new type. This would very much line up with in-universe stuff, because from what I'm aware, I think cyber new types were introduced in Zeta Gundam. Of course, this takes place within that same time period. It might even, I think it takes place in the same year as Zeta, or maybe a couple of years before, but it is around that similar time period, so the existence of cyber new types would definitely be a thing at this point in time. We don't really know a whole lot about where Nyaan comes from, so I think it's a very plausible explanation. And again, I think the biggest thing is that it's very much an in-universe concept. It is not absurd for this to be a possibility. I think within this sequence as well, she does kind of exhibit those characteristics of a cyber new type, so again, that just adds more plausibility to the idea that she could be. One of the coolest aspects about this episode is that we bring back Black Tri-Stars, which again completely makes sense for them to exist here and show up and be involved in clan battle. They give like a bit of an explanation as to where the third of the Black Tri-Stars has gone, but also why they're involved in doing clan battle, because essentially they've been kicked out of the military, so you know, they're kind of going job to job and trying to make ends meet. So of course, naturally, they're skilled in mobile suits, they have their Rick Doms. Makes sense that they would, you know, kind of get a piece of the pie in terms of clan battle. So again, completely makes sense within the context of everything that these characters would show up in here. And we got to talk about that Rick Dom design. I think it's so cool. And again, it's another aspect of this series that I love. Everything has a function within the mobile suits. So you look at the Rick Dom and you see that it's got this giant booster jetpack thing on its back, and you're like, why the hell does it have that? And then you realize it's essentially another leg, and you know, just adds, you know, extra like boost rocket fuel or whatever so it can move faster through space. I just think that's such a cool idea, and it nicely differentiates it from the Rick Dom, but it still very much looks like a Rick Dom. Like, you look at that design, it is unmistakably a Rick Dom. Similar way to the Gelgoog last episode was unmistakably looks like a GM, but of course then it wasn't. There's a whole explanation for that, which I won't dive into here. There's one scene towards the end of this episode, though, that really gets me excited for next episode, assuming they do it next episode. If not, it might be a later episode. And that is when Shalia talks about contacting Granada. Of course, this is like one of the major Xeon bases and was so in the 1 year war. I think that Caecilia was in charge of it. So who knows, maybe she's made that the main base of operations and almost the living quarters, if you will, for, you know, a lot of the Xeon ongoings. Because of course we know that Caecilia is essentially leading Xeon at this point within the universe. And in this scene, we do see that Shalia basically requests for a Kikaroga to be sent from Granada. Now, what is the Kikaroga? It's actually the mobile armor that Shalia pilots. So what does this mean? Shalia is probably going to jump into clan battle, and that is really cool. Now, who's he going to team up with for his MAV? Most likely Xavier, unless they bring someone else in. But, you know, it'd be cool to see Xavier in like another mobile suit. Maybe they have a Gelgoog lying around. Or maybe there's a totally different mobile suit that we're yet to see that is being created by Xeon. Again, this like opens the floodgates. And I think this episode in particular kind of really opens things up to where the story is going to go on a wider level. Especially when you look at the preview for episode 6, which I won't dive into too much, but essentially what seems to be going on in episode 6 is you have this rift that's being created between Nyaan and Amate, which of course happened at the end of this episode, and we're going to see that play out a little bit next episode. Shuji's hideout and the Red Gundam seem to have been discovered by Xeon with images and such. And then one of the biggest things, and it's kind of the last shot of that episode 6 preview, is that it looks like Caecilia is heading maybe to side 6. I mean, the title of next episode I think is called The Assassination of Caecilia or something like that. So they're going to bring her into it, and essentially that's opening up the world to, you know, outside things. Like, so far from this series, we've only been seeing things in a very small space inside 6. We've not been seeing properly kind of what's going on outside of here. Like, how does this world look like under the control of Xeon as opposed to the Federation? And that's something we're yet to see. We hear little bits about it, you know, discussions between characters and you know, general talking points and such, but we get to see it from the perspective of someone like Caecilia, who is very much in charge of Xeon. So I think we're going to kind of expand things a little bit more and dive a little bit deeper into how this world currently operates. And that gets me very, very excited, because that will probably mean things like more Xeon mobile suits, more returning characters. You know, we might see that Kycelia does play a significant role, and if the title of next episode is anything to go by, we could potentially see a massive shift up in terms of the dynamic and see how things operate then. So next episode is very exciting, but like I said, this episode was also a fantastic episode as well. But that wraps up my thoughts on Mobile Suit Gundam GQuuuuuuX episode 5, titled Nyaan Doesn't Know About Kira. Before I get out there, please do leave a like on this video and subscribe if you are a fan of Mecha anime content and want to see plenty more videos like this in the future. And like I said earlier, head on down to the comment section below. Let me know your thoughts on this episode. What do you think of the whole scenario with Nyaan and her going all out in the GQuuuuuuX? What do you think the purple lighting means? What do you think the purple Kira means? And are you excited for the next episode? I know I certainly am. And do you think they will actually kill Kycelia based on the title? Thank you once again for tuning into Mecha Chat today. I'll see you guys next time.